all like to believe we're rational decision makers, even at work. We gather information, we weigh the options, and we choose the best possible outcome. At least that's the story we tell ourselves. But if humans were truly rational decision makers, workplaces would look very different. We wouldn't revisit the same problems over and over again, and we wouldn't make decisions we later regret. We also wouldn't be so confident in choices that turn out to be flawed. So today, we're asking an honest question. Are we actually rational decision makers at work? I'm Professor Bailey. I have a Ph.D. in organizational communication, and this is Everyday Organizational Behavior, a research-based series where we unpack the micro moments, relational dynamics, and people-driven forces that shape our work and our life a lot more than we realize. To answer this question, we need to start with how decision-making is supposed to work and then compare it to how it actually works. The rational model is how decisions are supposed to be made, and in theory, our decision-making does follow this rational model. It assumes that decision makers clearly define the problem, identify all the possible alternatives, evaluate each alternative using consistent criteria, calculate the costs and benefits, and choose the option that maximizes the outcomes they're seeking. This model assumes that we have complete information, unlimited time, and unlimited cognitive capacity. In other words, it assumes that humans behave like spreadsheets. The rational model is useful as a benchmark, but it's not a realistic description of how decisions are actually made in organizations. The reality is that our rationality is bound. In real workplaces, decision-making looks very different, and that's because of this bounded rationality. Bounded rationality means that while people aim to make rational decisions, their rationality is limited or bounded by three major constraints: limited information, limited time, and limited cognitive capacity. At work, we rarely have all the information we'd like. We're under deadlines, we're juggling multiple tasks, our brains can only process so much information at once. So instead of optimizing our decision, we simplify it. We narrow our options, we focus on what's immediately available, we rely on experience, rule of thumb, and shortcuts. And this isn't a flaw, it's just how people function in complex environments. Ultimately, we often rely on good enough decision making. One of the most important outcomes of bounded rationality is a strategy called satisficing. Satisficing means we don't search for the best solution, we search for a solution that is good enough, one that can meet our minimum criteria. Once we find an option that seems acceptable, we stop looking. And at work, satisficing is incredibly common. Hiring managers will stop once they find a candidate who seems qualified. Teams will choose a workable plan rather than a perfect one. Leaders will settle on solutions that reduce risk rather than maximize profit. Satisficing isn't lazy decision making, it's just adaptive. It allows us to move forward in environments where perfection is unrealistic. But it also means decisions are shaped by what we encounter first, what feels familiar, what fits existing constraints, not necessarily what's objectively the best. Another major way people make decisions at work is through intuition. Intuition isn't guesswork, it's fast, experience-based judgment that operates kind of below our conscious awareness. Intuition does work well sometimes, especially when someone has deep domain experience, repeated exposure to similar situations, and feedback that help them learn patterns over time. In those cases, intuition can be efficient and effective, but intuition has limits. It's highly sensitive to bias, it's shaped by past experiences that may not always apply to new situations, and it can feel confident even when it's wrong. This is why intuition tends to work better in stable environments with clear feedback and worse in novel, complex, or high-stakes situations. So are we rational at work or not? The answer is we're not irrational. We're just human. At work, people don't make decisions by carefully optimizing every option always. They make decisions under constraints, they satisfice, and they rely on intuition. They move forward with incomplete information because what else are they supposed to do? Understanding this changes how we think about mistakes, accountability, and leadership. Bad decisions aren't always a result of poor judgment. They're often a result from our limited time, limited information, and just realistic cognitive limits. When organizations design systems assuming perfect rationality, they're setting people up for failure. Better decision making doesn't come from demanding us to be more rational. It comes from designing environments that support us as human decision makers. Decision making isn't just broken. We're not always going to make a bad decision. It's just bound.